Howdy, everyone. Welcome back to Through the Gears, and welcome to our first episode on YouTube for the 2025 season. On this episode, me and Dale Tanhardt will get you our best bets for the spring Talladega weekend. Last time at Bristol, one of our picks, Kyle Larson, dominated on the world's fastest half mile and bagged a second win of the 2025 season, bringing together plus 490 odds off a 4-unit bet and giving us a total profit for the weekend of 7.1 units. We're looking to build the winning streak heading into Dega, but we will certainly need to be lucky for this one. Leave a comment down below on our YouTube video, and I'll give some feedback for y'all in the next episode regarding what happens at Talladega and whatever y'all's picks are. I'd be willing to comment and see what y'all got going on for this weekend. I'm excited to hear your feedback, but for now, let's see who has the best odds at claiming the win on NASCAR's biggest oval as we go through the gears. Joining me now is the king of NASCAR betting. It is Dale Tanhardt. It's good to have you here for our first episode on YouTube for Through the Gears. Dale, how you doing for Talladega weekend?
Hey, man, no, thanks for having me. It's very generous to call me the king, maybe the king of bad beats for this weekend, at least. I'm looking at those diecasts behind you, and it actually gives me a lot of pain heading into Talladega weekend because I've been on the short end of some good outright, I would think some good outright bets that all fell apart each year between 2022 and 2024. So heading into Talladega, Alabama this weekend, we're looking for that to change just one time. Give me one time where somebody who takes the lead on the white flag keeps it coming to the checkered, and we'll be feeling pretty good.
I'd say I'd feel your pain, but I'm in the exact opposite seat that you were in last year with Tyler Reddick winning that spring race. That was a hell of a reaction for me when I saw him come out of that wreck and win in the spring. Feel bad for you there for all you Brad fans. Maybe he'll get it done and turn his season around with just one win. He's one of the favorites going into this race, but let's see who we got going as we got the ticker on the bottom here for our episode. Dale, we got Ryan Blaney, and Ryan Blaney, speaking of a king, he's been a king out here at Talladega before. He's got a win previously in the next gen era. But it just seems like even though he's led most of the laps here, he's only got that one win in the era. Do you feel like Blaney or just Team Penske in general are just going to be the favorites to beat this weekend, or who can challenge them the most?
Yeah, I mean, the entire Ford camp is so strong at these super speedways, and they just seem to be more diligent in their efforts and working together as well. And not just at Talladega, but at Daytona too. And for Blaney's sake, at Atlanta. I mean, the amount of times he's up front, leading laps, there at the finish, I truly believe that he has taken the torch from Brad Keselowski as the Pied Piper in the draft, like Brad took it from Dale Jr. When he started winning races at Dega, especially. Brad's a legend, and Blaney's definitely going down that path of being just as good, if not better. You know, Brian Blaney did win here fall 2023, super clutch win, and he's been super close in other races. You got to think back spring 2023 when he and Bubba Wallace got together on the white flag and wrecked. He could have won that race as well. Go back to fall 2022 where Chase Elliott passed him coming into the tri-oval. There's plenty of validation to bet on Ryan Blaney, and I'm going to again this weekend. You know, when you look around trying to find the best line, there's 10-1, 10-1, 10-1, just about everywhere. When we look at Ryan Blaney, 8.5-1 as I look over on FanDuel. But no, I think the 10-1 bet on Ryan Blaney's fine just because of how often he runs at the front, leads laps, wins stages, and prior success at Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta. Especially Talladega with multiple wins here in a couple different aero packages. So yeah, I'm all in on Ryan Blaney. Austin Cindric's been great here. Joey Logano has been very snake bitten at all super speedways, and as cursed as he is, I want to stay away from Joey Logano. But Ryan Blaney in particular, I definitely think is a favorite. I'm going to ride with it again.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Austin Cindric at 16-1. I found him out on Caesars right now, which is incredible for a Penske guy. I think another guy you mentioned, even though he's Penske affiliated, Josh Berry at 40-1. He's way down there, but the 21 car winning at Daytona last year with Harrison Burton, Josh Berry kind of doing well there. He was leading before he got flipped at that Daytona night race to close the regular season last year in 2024. Berry and the 21 car, they could get it done. Matt DiBenedetto back in the Gen 6 days almost got it done as well. I like Josh Berry going into this a little bit. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, you could look at Atlanta too. They had a really good car at Atlanta, and were a factor there before they crashed. They think they crashed on the white flag actually, but they were a force in that race too. But I lean towards these guys that are knocking on the door. I lean that way always on super speedways. I either lean towards the knocking on the door or the guys like Blaney. And Blaney actually, he checks both boxes on knocking on the door and being a stud in the draft, if you will. So, when I look at Josh Berry, the 40-1 line, not bad, but that's a good point to make about how he was leading at Daytona. He was leading that bottom lane when he wrecked and flipped. He's been more involved in the front of these races, it seems like, between his late work at SHR and his early work at the Wood Brothers, which is a Penske affiliate, as you pointed out. So I don't think Josh Berry is a bad bet. My philosophy, as close as my guys have been to winning this race and at other super speedways, in the Gen 7 era in particular, I just feel like I got to stick with some of those guys like Blaney, like Keselowski. Everybody's at least 10-1 or better, for you. And that's great for us because it allows you to bet multiple outright. So if you want to bet Keselowski, if you want to bet Blaney, you could stack a couple of those favorites with Josh Berry at 40-1 range as well. So I don't hate it, but I tend to lean towards these guys that are knocking on the door or are proven certified super speedway studs, especially in the Gen 7 era. So not bad. I wonder what his top forward is. I guess if you look over at DraftKings, top forward for Josh Berry, 15-1. I'd rather go that route because of how well the Fords work together up at the front. Blaney is not perfect. We've seen him wreck a bunch, and most of it's never of his doing. He's just extremely unlucky, especially at Daytona. But, when you look at how Blaney, Logano, Keselowski are just super expensive, if you will, at 3-1 range, 4.5-1 for Brad. Josh Berry and Penske equipment at 15-1 top forward. Maybe you go that route because he's 40-1 to win the race and beat basically 39 other drivers, or 15-1 to beat 8 other drivers. So no, that's not right. About 12 other drivers, but I'm kind of undervaluing Cody Ware, Cole Custer. So 15-1 top forward isn't bad, but I try to lean towards these guys that have done it before or are really, really close.
I love the touch of undervaluing Cody Ware. I don't think I'll ever hear that at any other race other than Daytona or a Talladega.
Hey, I never hate Cody Ware for a top 10. Like 16-1. Actually, I'm sorry, that's top 5. 3-1. Yeah, our top 10 odds are nuked this week, as I kind of expected with some crazy ones that have hit in 2025. So
I'll tell you this: I was able to cash out on the Jimmy Johnson top 5 and top 10 prop in the Daytona 500, and that just paid multiple units. I think it was 22 units just from that alone. It was insane.
That's crazy.
That's
crazy. Yeah.
That's what I love about the prop bets that we'll get into later on for that. But a lot of other guys, you mentioned that you either like the guys that are knocking on the door or are proven super speedway talents. A guy that's knocking on the door for me right now, Alex Bowman. He's a 30-1. He's been super close at a track like Daytona. Hendrick Motorsports is a good car when it comes down to it. In fact, Hendrick Motorsports driver has the best average finish at Talladega in William Byron. He's at a 7.7 average finish in the next gen era. He is a 16-1 odds favorite going into that. Hendrick Motorsports, I feel like, is the biggest challenger to these Fords going into this race. Dale, what's your thoughts on Hendrick Motorsports going into this race?
Yeah, I mean, very interesting because Kyle Larson, I'll start with him. He's obviously never won at the super speedways that we hammer and hammer on him. I know the Fox broadcast will this weekend, but Larson kind of getting closer and closer, it seems like, to winning at a drafting track. Has been close here at Talladega before, most notably spring 2022. Went to go past Eric Jones coming to the line, and then everything went crazy. Chastain sneaks through in the bottom. Larson's kind of getting closer. Alex Bowman is in the Gen 7 era, seems like just good at surviving. Good at surviving. His average finish is pretty strong. I think 6th overall since 2022 at Talladega on average finish, which is impressive considering the chaos that you normally see here. Like last fall, biggest wreck in NASCAR history, supposedly with 28, 29 cars involved. But Chase Elliott's won here in the past a couple times. And then William Byron. Out of the Hendrick camp, I got to look at William Byron because he's good and he's lucky. I mean, that is an elite combination. That's like the Jimmy Johnson combination in the Chase era of winning championships. He was super good and super lucky. And that's what William Byron is at these super speedways. Now, I think he wrecked at Atlanta, and he's had a few accidents here and there, but multi-time winner at Daytona now with 2 Daytona 500s. He's won in Atlanta. William Byron's been close to winning Talladega multiple times. So this is the one super speedway he has not checked off yet. So when I look at the Hendrick guys, I think William Byron is my favorite out of all of them. Even with everything, every good point I made of the other three, Byron is good and he's lucky. And as much as he's won at the other super speedways, I could consider that a knocking on the door type of look when we look at the driver of the number 24. So Byron 16-1, 18-1 range, as successful as he's been at the super speedways in the Gen 7 era, I'm still surprised by that. I'm shocked that he's not a co-favorite like he is on DraftKings. He's 12-1. So DraftKings is recognizing him as more of a co-favorite to Brad Blaney, but Canby Books have William Byron at 16-1, about 7th on this list. So I think out of the Hendrick camp, I like William Byron.
I like him too a lot. 16-1 and on the super speedways. That luck factor just eludes so many people except for William Byron. He has that golden horseshoe with him, it seems like, on these big tracks. Looking forward in other areas into the third manufacturer. We haven't talked much about any Toyotas really. If you look on their manufacturer prop, it's plus, I think it was plus 370 on FanDuel just for a Toyota to win outright. And funny enough, the Toyotas won this race in the spring, like we mentioned. Tyler Reddick, who's 25-1. His teammate Bubba Wallace, who I think he's knocking on the door as well at 20-1. Christopher Bell, who's just coming off the Atlanta win at 20-1. A lot of these Toyotas not being recognized overall in terms of in terms of more favored value. Dale, who's the best Toyota going into this race, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's tough with Toyota because it's just a strength in numbers game. And with the state of the racing right now at Talladega Superspeedway, as gridlocked as it is throughout the field, just double wide racing, unless we're fuel saving like we did last year when they did the 4 wide deal. But when everybody is all out, fully competitive, it's typically 2 dominant lines. And that kills the Toyotas because it's a strength in numbers game. And a lot of times they're not up at the front because of how well Ford works together and just literally strength in numbers in the Chevy camp. So when I look at Toyota, the reason why Tyler Reddick got to the front last year is because the Toyotas wrecked in a green flag pit cycle and after they had pitted. So Reddick survives the wreck. I think him and Truex were the 2 Toyotas that didn't wreck with Jones, Nemechek, Hamlin. They survived the wreck, and then everybody else had to pit for fuel. They go to the front, and now Tyler Reddick's in position to win. So it was kind of a more fluky deal to get to the front there on how that race turned out. But all that aside, I'm looking at Bubba Wallace. You said he's knocking on the door. He's been knocking on the door in super speedways for 7 years now.
Won the dual race.
Yeah, I mean, he finished second the Daytona 500 in 2018, and since then he's always been in the conversation. Won here fall 2021, for that first win. And I love that he won a dual race earlier this year. I think that dual win matters. I looked at someone like Christopher Bell last year who got closer and closer, obviously improved in the draft. He won a dual race in 2024. Now he's on my radar as a bet when he's 25 to 1, 30 to 1 every single week. And guess what? I hit him at Atlanta when he won at Atlanta, and he almost won the Daytona 500, leading the top lane when he got wrecked. So on the Christopher Bell topic, he wins at Atlanta. He's clearly gotten better. I think Bubba Wallace, who won a dual race this year, has won at a super speedway in the past, and that is Talladega Superspeedway, that he does have that win. You're going to place him around 20 to 1 on most books. I think that's absolutely worth a shot, considering how aggressive he is. I think out of the Toyota camp, he's the number one guy that sticks out to me at that price, at 20 to 1. As much as he is in the picture leading laps, probably should have won here spring of 2023 if he just didn't throw a bad block on that white flag. So Bubba, this is his home track. He's going to get booed, which is crazy, but I think he's such a talented super speedway racer, and it's been a good year for those guys. So I think they've got a lot of confidence heading into this weekend. And I had Bubba Wallace 20 to 1, 5.5 to 1 top Toyota, I think are both good looks heading into the weekend.
Both great looks. I like that top Toyota call out as well. Bubba Wallace definitely looking strong going into Talladega. Also, 2-time runner-up finisher in the 500, also in 2022 to Austin Cindric. So, Dale, I'm gonna throw it to you. Who's your 4 guys you're looking at, and possibly even an underdog guy you might be fetching in your top 4 picks going into this race?
Top 4 picks, Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney for sure. I'm just on that train. I can't reiterate it enough. As much as they lead laps, win stages, run up front, they're in the Ford camp that just controls these races until they get crazy, which they obviously always do. But Ford just controls this stuff, man. They're so good in the draft. They work so well together. In the Cup Series, they get better mileage. We've seen how these races have become a fuel game over the years too. But Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, just so good in the draft. I think they have to be considered. And then if I have to give 4 guys leading up to this weekend, I've talked a lot about RFK in general. RFK, Chris Buescher, not just knocking on the door. Maybe you couldn't say he's knocking on the door at super speedways, even though he did win Daytona fall 2023. But Chris Buescher has performed well enough over the past year and a half that he should probably have a couple more wins than he does. And he's gotten it done at Daytona in the past. So I'm going to throw Chris Buescher in there. If you can find him borderline 30 to 1, and I see 25 to 1 here, 30 to 1 over on BetMGM sticks out to me. And he's 30 to 1 over on DraftKings as well. And then I'm going to go with Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece has been outstanding at flipping here and having bad luck, but
Flipping everywhere, really.
Yeah, I think they've obviously had a great start to the year in that 60 team, while Brad has struggled. Buescher's been pretty good as well, but I think out of the RFK camp, I'd like to bet on all 3 of them. And Ryan Preece, pre-RFK days was pretty, or we'll say Stuart Haas because he flipped in a Haas car, but Ryan Preece was good in the draft when he was with JTG Daugherty. People forget that Ryan Preece, but he'd run top 5, top 10, be there at the end. It seemed like every single time. So I know he's had this weird juju imposed on him of barrel rolling and flying in the air. I think that's going to change this weekend. I think Ryan Preece is going to have a good run. If I had to go with an underdog who's not like a good proven super speedway racer, like former winners at super speedways like Eric Jones or Austin Dillon, maybe a Ross Chastain, give me Ryan Preece. I think in your betting card, you can't just go with the stats, and the stats in Gen 7 have not been great for Preece, but I think some of it you got to go with what you're feeling. You got to go with your heart. You got to go with your gut because it works out at tracks like this when a lot of luck comes into play. So I think Ryan Preece, if I can find 40, 50 to 1 range, see 40 to 1, 40 to 1.
He's 50 to 1.
I see 45 to 1 on DraftKings, and I see 50 to 1 on FanDuel. Go to FanDuel, put a penny on Ryan Preece, 50 to 1. Stack that with RFK. I just love RFK this weekend, along with Ryan Blaney. So if I had to give you those top four, Ryan Blaney, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Ryan Preece.
Yeah, if I so agree with that too. I have Chris Buescher on my card as well, leading off. I lead off more into the 30-1 area just because I love to get the maximum value that I can from these super speedways. Just like getting a Tyler Reddick at 25-1 last year, or even this year if he hits. I also like Alex Bowman at that same number, 30-1. He's been knocking on the door, getting to these super speedway wins. He's just survived towards the end, has been positioned to win these races. I see him going forward. I put about a unit and a half on Bowman, maybe 2 units on Buescher, since he has a win in the bag on a super speedway in the next gen era. I do like Brad Keselowski at 12-1. I feel like it's just too much in terms of there's so much potential in the middle of these odds here with like a Buescher, and I even agree with Ryan Preece. I actually had Preece on the Daytona 500 card after qualifying, after he showed a ton of speed at Daytona, but I feel like just like that luck factor with Byron, I think that something always bites Ryan Preece at some of these super speedways and at the end. I love the 51 number, and I definitely support it. Just I'm with a lot of other guys like a Michael McDowell, who's also on my card. 36-1 was in the lead coming to the line before the wreck. 36-1 with the 71 team. Inspire. I'm willing to do that after what Carson Hocevar showed at Atlanta and fighting for the lead at the end. McDowell knows how to be up front, and now that Spires kind of showed that they can get their cars up there. I mean, of course they've won the race with Justin Haley, who's also a formidable restrictor plate style racer. But McDowell up there because of his experience and what he's done at the end of last year's race. Give me him at 36-1, probably just a unit there. And then his old car also, Todd Gilliland, 44-1. He's been formidable as well with front row. I really like a lot of their guys like Noah Gragson, but if I were to pick one guy out of that camp at 44-1, give me Todd Gilliland, give him a unit. And I'm going to even throw a fifth guy out there, and I'm going to give him a pretty big shot because he impressed me way so much at the Daytona 500. I'm going to go deep in the bag here. Give me Corey LaJoie at 150-1.
I thought about him.
I'll be a spoiler, and I have him at least on my props as well. But if you want to go for a fifth guy that can get maximum value, Corey LaJoie's your guy. He's ran up front at super speedways before, and even with Rick Ware Racing, even at the biggest stage in the Daytona 500, he looked like a contender to win that race in that car. Talladega should be no different as long as he finds himself in the right place at the right time, which he seems to do time and time again when it comes to these restrictor plate races. I would go put a penny on the stacking pennies guy of Corey LaJoie. Now going into our prop picks here, Dale. I'm excited to see what you got. You already called out Cody Ware at his top 10. Who else are you thinking in there?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about Corey LaJoie is DraftKings and Hard Rock both left him off of their top Ford props.
Wow.
So I had looked at that yesterday thinking about Corey LaJoie for top Ford to see if I could get 12, 15, 20-1, somewhere in that range, I feel like would be reasonable with how well he ran at Daytona. And he's not even listed. They don't even have him on there. So interesting note there. But when we look at props, there's just so much out there. One thing I like to do at super speedways is test the Toyota props. You only have 9 Toyotas in the field. And John Hunter Nemechek is the guy that has had some great runs at super speedways, whether it's surviving the chaos or just being up front in the draft. Nemechek has been there, and he's 20-1 top Toyota over on DraftKings. Riley Herbst, when we saw him in a Ford, he ran up front. I don't know if it was his debut or his second start, Talladega Fall 2023, but was pushing Kevin Harvick to an almost win in that race, ended up with the top 10. I think he just missed the top 5, but 20-1 top Toyota for those two guys, to me, sticks out. I don't mind lumping that with Bubba Wallace and maybe Eric Jones. Eric Jones, 12-1 top Toyota. How good has he been at super speedways in the past? One of my heartbreaks, spring 2022, had Eric Jones 60-1 outright, had him top 3, top 5, and he gets freight train coming to the checkered flag and ends up P6. I lose all of them. I still believe in Eric Jones. He should have won that dual race earlier this year where NASCAR was ridiculous in how they timed a yellow, 3 feet from the checkered flag, and Austin Cindric won it. But Eric Jones has done enough to warrant not just a 12-1 top Toyota prop, but even outright for Eric Jones. I always talk myself into it with him, 40-1, 50-1 range. Maybe take a top 5 on Eric Jones if you can find 5-1, 6-1. I see 5.5-1 over on DraftKings. Love that right off the top of my head. And then sometimes FanDuel's pretty good about these top 5s. 6.5-1 top 5 on FanDuel. Love that bet. Eric Jones top 5, 6.5-1 on FanDuel Sportsbook, to me, is a fantastic prop to have for a guy that has been close to winning here. He's won at Daytona. He, in my mind, won the dual race earlier this year. He's been a factor multiple times at these super speedways. And we reiterate the knocking on the door type of mentality and capping this. And Eric Jones has arguably been better at knocking on the door than just about anybody in the NASCAR Cup Series in terms of winning a race at Talladega Superspeedway. So I lean checking out the Toyota props just because you get such high odds for these guys with limited cars to compete against. If you get one wreck, you can knock out Denny Hamlin, Bell, Reddick, Briscoe. It's a numbers game with how stupid these super speedway races go towards the end. So I lean those Toyota props, Jones, Herbst, Nemechek, and then give me an Eric Jones top 5 at 6.5-1. Those are 4 pretty good props, in my opinion.
You're right with that value for the top Toyotas and having not that much competition to go through. John Hunter Nemechek, he finished top 5 in the Daytona 500. He was running up front. He was running up front in the fall race over there too. If you put that logic for John Hunter Nemechek at 20-1, or Riley Herbst, who's ran up here before in a Ford, I like Nemechek just a little bit more because he's shown that with the Toyotas. I'd get his 20-1 for the top Toyota. And then
in the 500 they put 4 Toyotas in the top 5. That's not going to happen again. But you had Jimmy
Johnson top Toyota.
You had Jimmy run P3 and you had Nemechek run P5, and Eric Jones ended up P12. I know he was involved in some wrecks, but like I said, with how stupid these races get at the end, you should have some coin on a prop like that, because another reiteration of what we keep talking about, it is a numbers game when you have a lot of wrecks, and I think that benefits hitting some props in the Toyota camp.
Absolutely. I'm going to reiterate another point that I made on Corey LaJoie. I said it again. I'll say it again. The top 5 and top 10 should be mentioned and put on, and I'm putting it on my card outright, with LaJoie getting a top 5, which is 14-1 at 1 unit, and then his top 10 via FanDuel is at plus 430. So that's where you can find Corey LaJoie at the moment, while other guys like DraftKings don't have him on for some reason, for at least their top 4 props and all that. But to get him in the top 5 or top 10 with how fast he was at Daytona, give me a 14-1. Give me for a top 5 and a plus 430 for a top 10. Another guy who also got a top 10 here, I believe in this race last season. Look at Anthony Alfredo, top 10 at 6-1. I'd be willing to throw 1 unit on that too. If things go the way they did last year with how crazy the finish was with the big wreck, and you have Anthony Alfredo with Beard Motorsports enter the top 10 for some reason, 6-1 outright just to get the top 10, I'm willing to put money on that. That's a pretty safe bet for Talladega, as long as everyone gets through and makes it. And Beard Motorsports, Brendan Gaughan almost won here, or was looking to win here with that team in the Gen 6 era. So that team isn't a slouch compared to like the others like BJ McLeod Motorsports, respectfully, although he did the lead laps here with the fuel save going on. But Anthony Alfredo, that team. And Parker Retzlaff, yeah.
Don't forget about him. Second, or he didn't finish second, but he pushed Harrison Burton to the win last fall.
Yeah, same team. they've shown that they can stay up front and hang with them when it comes down to the end of these races. So I mean, even looking at his, I'd look at his, maybe look at his top 5, but I'm satisfied putting money on just the top 10 alone with that team. So going into our final little segment here, we're gonna look briefly at the Xfinity series. I feel like it's just a little bit more predictable, Dale, when it comes to these two RCR cars that are just are gods among men when it comes to the rest of the field here in the Xfinity series.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, Jesse Love he's come out. He won Talladega here last year and then won the season opener. Austin Hill probably had the car to beat, but had an issue. Austin Hill is in particularly at Daytona and Atlanta, unless he's involved in an accident, you just can't get him out of the lead. He's excellent in the draft. He's got a great spotter and he's got the best car. But Talladega has not been great for Austin Hill. He still has not won here. This race has had quite a variety of winners, if you will. Jeb Burton is the only 2-time Talladega winner in this field. That's a pretty crazy stat.
That is crazy.
But no, yeah, RCR has been fantastic. And I think this is a spot with all the youth in this field. I think you cannot be wrong betting both RCR cars. People get scared and they get shooed away from taking Austin Hill in particular because he's always 2.5 to 1, 3 to 1 to win these races. FanDuel, I actually can be. I'm looking at Bet Rivers, has the best line for Austin Hill at plus 320. I think it's totally fair to take that line, or plus 325, I should say. You take Austin Hill plus 325 over on Canby. You take Jesse Love 7 to 1 over on FanDuel, and then I think you feel pretty good heading into this weekend because there's so much youth in this field. We've seen a lot of new faces and new places with guys moving their way up from ARCA or the Truck Series like William Sawalich, Carson Kvapil, Nick Sanchez, Daniel Dye. I mean, there's just so much more youth in this field that I feel like these guys that have done it before, run up front, have great experience and knowledge in the draft in this car that has not changed a lot. You know, one thing about the Cup Series had a lot of different aero changes or just one drastic change between 2021 and 2022. The Xfinity car has been very similar for like 6 years now in terms of how it drafts at Daytona and Talladega. And I think that benefits guys like Austin Hill, especially. So take Austin Hill, take Jesse Love. And then I think you got to take a shot at Eric Almirola. Joe Gibbs Racing. I mean, Joe Gibbs brought him in to win races, but especially to compete with RCR at the super speedways. We saw Almirola almost beat Hill at Atlanta. Almirola is a fantastic super speedway racer. He's done it in the Cup side. He's done it in the Xfinity side back in 2017. Almirola is going to be a threat. If there's a guy that's going to come out here and beat Jesse Love or Austin Hill, it's probably going to be Eric Almirola racing for Joe Gibbs this weekend at 12 to 1. I think it's a pretty good price.
I agree with you. I thought about Eric Almirola at 12 to 1. That's a great price for him, like you said. That those two RCR cars, like you said, with Austin Hill is his 3 to 1. That's enough to knowing that he hasn't won at this track. It's enough for me not to take his number just to save a little bit of units and allocation to not give it to Hill. I'd give it though to Jesse Love at 7 to 1. I like that number at 7 to 1. He's the defending winner at this track and just masterclass whatever was left of the field at the end of that race. And he seems to have also that survival instinct when it comes to this race. Austin, or with restricted plate racing in general, Austin Hill's kind of a boom or bust. Sometimes he's up there dominating, while other times, like here at Talladega, he ends up getting in the big one or having a problem that takes him out, or it's just not in contention for the win one way or the other. But Love, I like his track record's obviously not too far being his second year, but the defending winner, I'll take those odds for him. I'm going to take a flyer here, going a little bit deeper into the pool here at Xfinity, and I'm going to take one of those rookie talents, that guy being Nick Sanchez. He's won at restricted plates in the Truck Series. He's with the team, the 48 team, that's works pretty close with RCR and has good equipment, as Parker Kligerman showed in years past with that team at restricted plate racing. And his number is 26-1. 26-1 is a great value pick going into this race for Nick Sanchez. I think he got the stage win last week at Rockingham as well. He's starting to look like he's got feet underneath him going into a race like this here at Talladega, and hopefully a place where he doesn't get into any other issues off track like he did in the Truck Series a few years ago. But I see that 48 car competing for sure, and who knows, if things go well for him at the closing end of the race, see that 48 Spike Coolers Chevrolet hit victory lane would be something I'm looking out for. But that'll do it for this episode of Through the Gears. Appreciate you coming on for the first time here, Dale. It's been amazing to talk with you and catch back up.
Yeah, no, thanks. This is it's been a lot of fun shooting it, talking about some Talladega here, and hopefully it'll go a little better for me this time around, and you guys as well. And I feel like we've gone over some good picks. Feel like I'm kind of on the favorites, but I feel like they're due, and it's going to be a fun weekend for everybody, whether you're watching on TV or at the track, and hopefully the bets go well for all of us for Talladega.
Absolutely. Where can the people find you on social media and out there on the web?
Yeah, just add Dale Tanhardt everywhere. It's pretty uniform. YouTube, I hate saying X. I love to call it Twitter. X, Instagram, TikTok, and do some iRacing streams over on Kick. But YouTube is where I do my long form betting content. I show Dale Center, and we'll go over Talladega coming up in the next couple of days for Xfinity and Cup in great detail, like we have done here on this episode. So just add Dale Tanhardt everywhere. Make it easy for everybody to find me.
Absolutely. I'm at Wyatt W Racing, as you see down there on Twitter. Yeah, I still call it Twitter. I can't call it.
It's Twitter, man. It's Twitter to me. Always will be.
Always, forever will be. Raised up on Twitter. I'll always forever be Twitter. Wyatt W Racing on Twitter. Wyatt_GameTime_Watson on Instagram. And then you can check out the rest of the Frontstretch podcast network, including Bringing the Heat with Brian Nolan, the Pit Straight with myself and Alex Gintz, and others from the Frontstretch network that cover the open wheel sphere. Trey Lyle, Michael Massey, and Dalton Hopkins on Happy Hour, which they just had Kenny Wallace last week. Don't know who they had this week, but check out their content there as well. And again, thank y'all for tuning in to the first episode of the season for Through the Gears on YouTube. I'll be sure to check out y'all's comments and what y'all say. And I'm excited to see if we can make some money in Talladega, baby. Let's go. And recording. Bang. I think I said, oh, there it is. And
Steven Stump of Frontstretch.com here. Come back for more great racing videos, and if you like us, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.